Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Hello, Sex Ed with DB listener. If you love science-based conversations about sex and relationships, then I think the Sex and Psychology podcast will become one of your new favorite shows. Hosted by Dr. Justin Lehmiller, a social psychologist, author, and senior research fellow at the Kinsey Institute, this podcast offers a deep dive into the science of intimacy, desire, and connection. Each week, Justin sits down with leading experts to discuss topics like attraction, love, communication, fantasies, orgasm, pleasure, and so much more. What I love about this show is that it takes cutting-edge research and turns it into practical insights you can actually use in your everyday life. Whether you've ever wondered what your sexual fantasies reveal about you, how to keep the spark alive, how to explore your kinky side, or how to successfully navigate open relationships, there's an episode for you. With more than 500 episodes released to date, there's a huge library of fascinating conversations to explore. Use the link in our episode description to start with one of my favorite episodes, How to Have Amazing Sex, featuring sex therapist Dr. Emily Jamea. Then subscribe to the Sex and Psychology podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Let's talk about solo sex. Masturbation can help reduce stress, improve sleep, and help you figure out what actually feels good for you. One of my go-tos when I'm having me time is Uberlube. It's super smooth, it lasts a long time, and it helps every touch feel better, truly. It's also latex compatible, so it's great with condoms, and it even helps reduce chafing for workouts or thigh rub season. Also, here's a very fun fact. Stylists use it as a hair serum flyaway tamer. Pretty cool. Uberlube is a real multitasker. If you're curious, try it for yourself. Use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com and see why Uberlube is my all-time fave. Hello. Welcome back to Sex Ed with DB. I'm DB, your favorite sex educator and pleasure expert. And today, finally, we're talking about feet. This episode, I sat down with writer and multi-format producer Adam Zmith to talk all about foot fetishes. Adam is the author of Soulmates, Solemates, brilliant, a history of our fetish for feet, and also straight up a foot guy. He also has a foot fetish, and I can't imagine anyone better to unpack foot fetishes for us today. He is so funny. We had so much fun in this episode. You're gonna love it. What makes feet such a turn on for so many people? And it really is so many people, way more than you think. There is so much behind what makes foot stuff pleasurable, whether it's sensory pleasure, power play, aesthetics, or any combination of the above. And you're gonna hear all about that and more with Adam Zmith. Adam Zmith, welcome to Sex Ed with DB. How the hell are you?
I'm good, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
You're here to talk all about feet today, which is incredible.
Everything from the ankle below, yes.
Incredible. And we're also going to be talking about the history of the foot fetish, which before we started recording, I was telling you, we've had endless episodes and we've talked about feet for sure on the show. But I don't think we have had a dedicated episode to foot fetishes. And so thank God you're here. Thank foot.
And you've done 350 episodes. You've been sleeping on the job.
We've really been sleeping. I don't know what the hell we've been doing. Obviously not doing it right, but I'm so glad that you're here today. You're an author and you have a lot of really cool stuff. You're a podcaster, you're a writer. You're just an awesome person that it seems like we're already friends. Right. So I'll just name that right up front.
Yeah.
And we're going to start our interview with the quick and dirty as we always do, but this time it's foot fetish edition. So this is our rapid fire segment where we get to know our expert, that's you, through bold questions, honest answers, and real pleasure-centered insight. And I'm going to ask you to be, I know I have on authors on the show and I have to tell them you can't be verbose in this section. You have to be succinct. So in one sentence or less, how common are foot fetishes?
Oh, foot fetishes are super common. It's probably the single most common fetish for a body part.
The single most. And that's crazy because we have breasts. A lot of people have ears. You know, we have all of these other parts of our behind the knee. I feel like people are interested in.
That's a good one.
But the foot is the most common.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating, and I buy that. I do, which I'm excited to get into a little bit more. How about the gender breakdown on who has foot fetishes? What does your research tell you about men, women, and non-binary folks and who is into feet?
Yeah, there's not loads of evidence on this, but what there is comes from surveys by people like Justin Lehmiller, who have generally found that it is more common in men than women, and it's more common in gay men. Than like gay women, for example, and also more than straight women. Straight men, gay men, gay women, and then straight women. And I'm not sure where non-binary people fit into that, except that they are very often very kink friendly and kink positive and very expansive in their minds and their bodies. So they're probably high up there too.
We assume the theys are also into feet is kind of what we have to assume, because they're maybe potentially more advanced and more aware of kind of their likes and their wants if they have recognized that they perhaps are on the spectrum or are non-binary. And the last quick and dirty question we have is, what's the number one thing that people get wrong about foot fetishes?
I'll tell you what, I think the number one thing that people get wrong with foot fetishes is that they say feet are gross, aren't they? And that is obviously a subjective statement. And so I would say, no, feet are sexy, wouldn't I? But I think that even if you don't fancy feet yourself, even if you don't have the fetish, it's wrong to say that they are gross, that feet are a gross body part.
Is this something that you are into personally, and that's why you were like, I'm going to write a book on this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's funny. Like, I often get asked, why did you write a book about the history of foot fetishes? And I say, because I like feet. And I had questions.
Fucking duh.
And like, I think people are sort of not usually expecting me to say that. They're usually expecting me to have a more academic answer, to say like, well, I think it's rather the most overlooked of our sexual desires. And I just wanted to reclaim it for the canon, you know, or something like that. But no, the answer is I'm just a foot freak.
That's good enough reason for me to be talking to you. I mean, why? Yeah. Name a better person to write this book. If you're not interested in feet, then what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's start there then. So your book, I love a pun, brilliantly titled, is Soulmates, S-O-L-E, mates, of course, a history of our fetish for feet. And I'm wondering, you're a foot freak, self-described. How did you get started on this book? Like, tell me about your journey to writing it. I'm curious, like, while you were writing it, what was the most surprising thing you learned in your research?
Yeah, well, the first thing to say is that it's just come out in the USA. It's been out in the UK for a couple of years now, and it's just come out in the USA. So, hello, America. That's great. And I got started on the project really because of a sort of rebound from my previous book, which was a history of poppers. Which is like a whole other conversation that we could have. And I'm sure you've had that.
Can't wait to have you back on for that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about poppers. And so after that, I thought, wow, is there another subject that like is a thing that's interesting to me that comes from me, just like how poppers does? I don't mean to say that I like I don't lactate poppers. I just mean like it's a pleasure that I have, you know, like it's an enjoyment that I have. So what's another thing that comes from me that I can make a project out of and then go and have fun talking about it with people? And so the immediate answer to that was feet. because I have that fetish. And so that was how I got started on it, really, and just started to look into it a bit more and do some reading and like order random old secondhand books and do some Googles and watch a lot of porn and speak to people actually about it as well. Yeah, that was one of the key things that I really wanted to do, was like interview other people like me, other freaks like me. So that was how I started to build the project.
Love it. That's so wonderful. Other freaks like me. That's your next book.
Yeah.
And other fetishes that other people have. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I'm wondering, like, when you were doing this research and when you were talking to other people, did it, like, a lot of the things that come up for you, just was it a lot of like, oh, I am just like everyone else, or everyone else is just like me? Like, was that kind of the sentiment?
Yeah, it was like, I would say it was half and half. So half of it was that, for, one half of it was just like, I wasn't looking for this necessarily, but like validating that, like, wow, there are a lot of other people who like feet out there like me. But then the other half of it was that actually what I found was that, wow, like, people like feet in very different ways to me. And so actually, of all the people who like feet, there was actually like so many different ways to like feet. And I guess I'd known about some of them, or I had seen or read about some of them, but through the research, I discovered lots of other ways and lots of other things that people do with feet, including people that have like bodies that are not like my body. And I tend to have people with a similar body to me because I'm a gay man, very boring gay man. If you've got a vagina, or, you've just got a different gender or a different presentation to me, then there's all sorts of different things that I discovered in the research.
Please spoil it for us. What were like the top 3 things that people did with feet?
Yeah, well, actually, there's an entry in a book. I've forgotten what year it was published, The Joy of Lesbian Sex. It was a spin on, The Joy of Sex, and then there was The Joy of Gay Sex, which Edmund White co-wrote, and then 2 lesbians wrote The Joy of Lesbian Sex, I think around about 1980, but someone's going to fact check me and they're going to write to you and you'll get the angry email, Danielle, but we want to know the exact year.
We welcome that.
Yeah, so there's an entry in The Joy of Lesbian Sex called Big Toe, and one of the many things that it says, it says many things in that entry about what 2 women or 2 lesbians can do with feet, including like massage and everything like that. But the best part about it is the way that it says that, like, the big toe can be used as an appendage in a way that, unlike fingers, doesn't tire out. And so basically, I think that's a lot of toe in vagina action.
We're fucking toes.
Yeah, we're fucking toes. And the toe has seemingly more virility than fingers, according to The Joy of Lesbian Sex.
Fantastic. This is a great place to start. So
we're right into it.
A little,
yes,
right into it. Backing up a little bit, can you define a foot fetish? What does it typically involve? I think most people only think of foot fetishes only in terms of visuals, but as we just talked about with big toe fucking, there's some tactile play that can be involved. So give me like an overview of like what is this and what does it include?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one way to start answering that question is to maybe delineate a little bit between a kink and a fetish, which is kind of true broadly, not just about feet, but like a lot of people use those words interchangeably, and there is definitely overlap and fluidity between the words. I'm not the police of language, right? But generally, a kink is generally thought of as like something that you just like, you're into it a little bit. Whereas a fetish, it tends to be something where it like really governs your sexuality. And so for example, I would say that like feet are very, very present in my sexuality, but I don't need feet to be involved in order for me to like be sexually fulfilled. Whereas some people with quote unquote a pure fetish, that's how they are. And I interviewed one in the book. He's called Doug, and he's been running a foot fetish community and website and newsletter for, 30, 40 years. And for him, like sex, if there's not feet involved, like he doesn't even have other types of sex. He just does things with feet. So he's like a pure fetishist. Whereas you might be at the other end of the spectrum on the kink end where you just like dabble once in a while. So in terms of, I just want to say that there's a huge spectrum. You might be someone that's like licked someone's toes once and it wasn't horrendous, or you might be someone for whom it's not sex unless feet are involved. And so And sex, in my opinion, can be that. It doesn't have to be something going into a hole, you know. It can be, you know, it's pleasure that you're getting like with another person or with yourself, basically. So I have quite a broad thing there. And then in terms of the giant menu of things that people actually do, if that's what we want to talk about.
I do, yes.
Okay, yeah. You know, there is a lot of people really like sucking and licking. And so that's like sucking toes, tongue in between the toes, trying to get as much of the foot into the mouth as possible for some people, or like licking the whole length of it. And sometimes that might be worshipping. There's obviously a side tab here about there can be power play involved in whatever you're doing. And so you might be like a sub worshipping the master's or mistress's feet, and that might involve that you're like licking them and sucking them / cleaning them for the master or mistress with your mouth. And you might be like, you know, a dirty pig, and they're making you do that because you don't deserve better than that. So there's all that kind of stuff. And then foot massage. This isn't a really good way to like sort of explore whether you like it, because like, I mean, you know, it's a massage. It's a really nice thing to have, even if it's not in a sexual context.
I fucking love getting my feet rubbed.
Right. Yeah.
When I'm literally dreaming about going to getting a pedicure later today, because exactly. I just love getting pedicures.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that feels like the easiest entry for people who are like, I don't really know. It's kind of like, get your feet rubbed with oil and tell me that doesn't feel good to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it can be a way that, you know, your partner could like turn you on, or you could turn your partner on, not even if you're trying to turn each other on, but just where you're just like, you're on the couch and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna give you a foot rub because that's a nice thing. And then sometimes it leads on. You might not be being turned on specifically by the foot, so it might not be like a kinky or fetishy thing, but like it's on the spectrum, and you know, we're all about spectrums. So yeah, a foot rub, foot massage is another one. And then I guess there are different things, like a lot of people like things like sploshing, like, or with food. So, you know, if people like might be into like gooey things and food kind of things that get messy, and so like if you like that and or you like feet, then that's another thing to do, is to like use the feet to like splosh down on food or cream or custard or all those like splodgy things that people get really into. Similarly with like with textures like leather and rubber and latex and stuff, you might have that on your feet. Like that's another thing. So footwear, including socks, is like a whole other thing. Like you might your desire, actually, your fetish might actually be for like a leather boot. And you might not be interested in the flesh that's on the inside. You're interested in the boot, and you want the master to like make you lick their leather boot, you know, and you might love that. And you might like the boot and the shoe. Some people just really love specific kinds of shoes or specific kinds of socks. Similarly, and this is more my territory, like the smells are really important. So you might like really clean shoes feet that smell like you've just come out of the bathtub, or you might like really sweaty ones that smell like you've just been working out at the gym for 2 hours. Stinky.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm more in the stinky end of the spectrum myself.
Oh, love it. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it feels like grimy and just like that. Yeah, people like that sweat smell. Mm-hmm. I think that's in part why some people really like to buy like other people's dirty underwear. Yeah. Like it kind of can be in the sweaty, like kind of sweaty, sticky end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, smell of a partner, I know there's all sorts of research and stuff about how smell is an important part of our attraction to another person. And you have like, we don't really have the vocabulary to say, but you have like certain types that you like. You have like smell types, right? But these are things that are kind of hard to categorize, but you can smell two people and say, I desire this one more than that one, and you can't really put words into why. Different people are different people, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, yeah. I want to smell you, and especially if I'm having sex with you, I want to experience you, and so I love the smell and the sweat because I'm getting you.
Totally. Yes. Very hot. moving on to Victorian lesbians and feet.
Yes.
Which is what you write about in your book.
Yeah.
Please tell us everything about this. And I also just want you to share with us, like, I know we could spend hours on this, and you have with the audiobook of this book.
Oh, yeah.
But give us like a brief history of the foot fetish, the highlights, like what should we know, and please add Victorian lesbians to the list.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think that it's interesting to point out right off the bat that there wasn't like a day when the foot fetish was invented in a way that I don't know whether it is probably true of other kinks or desires, especially ones that involve like a particular product or toy that you just couldn't do that thing unless, you know, like anal beads. Someone invented anal beads, and then that was a thing. Whereas feet, we've just had them all along, and as it seems like as long as we've had them, that they've been there in the bedroom, even when the bedroom was a cave. I don't know actually if there's any cave art. I didn't go that far back. I don't know if there's any cave art that shows people sucking toes.
Kissing
feet.
I
confess that I have quite a broad definition of like what I class as like, let's say, foot love in general, and how we show each other love and attraction and desire for each other through feet. That's why I go into some Bible stories in the book, and Jesus showing love for the disciples and for the common man by like washing their feet. You've got really interesting things happening in the Middle Ages, when there was a rise of sexually transmitted infections in Europe, and that coincided with a rise in poetry and odes that included people worshipping each other's feet and talking about feet as a way of saying, like, I love you, and I love you so much that I will kiss your feet, or that I respect you so much that I'm like, I want to kiss your feet. And so there's some theory that, if genital sex was causing an infection that was going around and a bit of an epidemic, then it's safer to use feet. And that is actually that. I don't know about that in the Middle Ages. We don't know if that's true, but we do know that as a concept is true, in the sense that what happened for a lot of men that have sex with men in the crisis years of the HIV epidemic was that lots of men got together to do things that were not running the risk of transmission. And they got together to do lots of kinky things. They got together to wank in a circle, or they got together to do foot fetish things or other kind of sexual things, because they knew that was like a zero transmission risk. And so they still wanted to be sexy together. Sorry, Victorian lesbians.
I beg.
There's like, so, I mean, I don't know if it's the same. I mean, I'm sure it is the same in places in the US, but in the UK, in London, in the Victorian era. So we tend to think of Victorian era as like very, like, people were very prudish about sex, which is true, but then what does that mean? That there's always an underground, that there are always like special places, secret clubs, and publications that are passed around between people. And so we do have some records and accounts from these places in London in the Victorian eras, and it does turn up in records about brothels that often you would have, like, I guess sometimes you have like two women that are being paid by a man to do a scene, just like you'd have now in porn or as sex workers. And so there is evidence of like men wanting to see women do foot things with each other in that era as well. And I think that there's evidence. There's like a story here and a story there, like an erotic story written by women about them playing with women in this way. And I don't know whether it was like, this is kind of like a sort of slightly inoffensive way of being sexy. I don't know.
Like they were like, we know it's a prudish time, so we're gonna be a little quainter and focus on the feet.
But then also there's this funny thing, isn't there, about shoes and footwear, which keeps coming up. We've already talked about it a little bit, that like there's this thing we tend to say about the Victorians, that like they would cover their ankles because that was like too sexy for people.
Risque,
yeah. And so that's why, you know, those women wore those like long skirts and dresses. But then also like all through history, we've like made really like glamorous shoes, and shoes with lots of adornments on them, and shoes that have like shaped our feet in certain ways, and shoes that have drawn attention to our feet. And again, I don't think you can separate that out from this really common desire that we have, that we seem to have, that like we're literally drawing attention. I mean, think of like those like really camp French kings with the high heels and all the jewels on the feet.
Yes.
Yeah, like, yes, it's to show how rich you are, but it's also like, look at my feet. Aren't they special?
Yes. Wow.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Rachel.
And we're still in debt.
Because we're still deadbeats.
We're still losers.
We still care more about dancing than making money.
Actually, we've struggled with money because
most people do.
And that's what this podcast is still about.
The first season of Deadheads was going to be a 5-part series.
Then we kept writing.
Now it's 11 parts.
That's a lot more parts. You can still call it season 1 if you want, or even season 2.
But we're calling it season 1 plus interest.
Get it?
Since launching our first 5 episodes, Deadheads has won 3 very important awards.
Can you believe it?
But it is still very much a labor of love.
When we started this journey, we knew we wanted to investigate the architecture of personal finance,
the myths of financial responsibility,
and to uncover the deeper structures that have created an economy that feels unsafe for most people.
We just didn't realize how much work it was going to take.
Yeah. But at long last, we are publishing every single last drop of our initial vision and have brand new episodes to share with you on June 25th, 2026.
That is so soon.
Yeah, it's really soon.
Paid subscribers will be able to listen to the whole thing at once and get access to the bonus episodes, including our back catalog of interviews from 2025.
Deadheads is now produced in association with Signal Company Number 1, the very cool people who are helping us stick to our promises,
like publishing everything on time.
Make sure to subscribe to Deadheads wherever you get your podcasts.
And join our party on Instagram, TikTok, and Substack.
We love you. Bye.
Let me tell you about the most fun homework assignment I have ever given. Daily Magic Wand Time. It started with me doing a 21-day experiment to answer one question. What happens to stress, sleep, mood, and sexual satisfaction when I use the magic wand every day, versus when I have partnered sex, versus when I have no sexual activity at all? The results were honestly so fascinating that we turned it into a full-blown scientific study with over 1,000 participants. Now we have real data on how consistent solo pleasure can impact mental health and overall wellness, not just orgasms. Curious? Go to magicwandstudy.com and read what we found out. Okay, quick reality check. Every 25 seconds, someone discovers Lem, Nancy's incredible best-selling lemon-shaped toy. There are over 15,000 reviews with a 4.7 star rating and over 1 million O's delivered. People call it life-changing, powerful, and honestly, it's a little shocking for something that looks this cute. It's quiet, it's easy to use, and those little pulsing air sensations build in a way that hits just right. Try it yourself at hellonancy.com and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 25% off. I have a question here because you were kind of talking about the way in which we shape our feet. And one of the questions that I'm interested in kind of like talking about, you know, busting myths or proving them to be correct, Chinese foot binding. Is this actually done for the purpose of a fetish, or can we separate this from culture? Like tell me about that.
Yeah, like it's something that it took a really long time for it to be, I think, like, for people to like start to really understand it and like understand what was going on. And it's obviously subject to like a Western male white like gaze quite a lot. And I think so you've got to be cautious about what conclusions you draw based on what has been explored and what research has been done and stuff like that. But as far as I know, and again, listeners can correct us and tell us more. But as far as I know from the research that I've looked at, that it's kind of a mixture of things. That like there's this thing about it being used to make sure that women stay in the house and that they don't go and do like work on the land, which was like a sexist thing. It was controlling women. And it was removing their chance for agency to like work and or earn money, that kind of thing. So because you essentially make it harder for the woman to walk and to stand for a long time, that it means that she's kind of housebound. So there's a part of it which is that. And then I think I think these things are all mixed up in how these kinds of like cultural practices develop, because then you have like, well, it's just a desirable thing to have. It's a desirable thing to have like small feet and to have feet that conform to that specific shape and that you can wrap in that specific way. And that then becomes its own kind of reason for doing it. But at the same time that there are records from early centuries in China about men especially liking small, like fancying smaller feet, and like the smaller, the more wrapped, the better. And that was like a particular desire that they had, and there was perfumes involved and things like that. So I think that it was such a big cultural practice, you know, and China's got such a long, rich history, and there's so many. It's always been like a really big population that, and it's so diverse because there are so many different. So China's so big, and there are so many different provinces that have these different shades of the cultural practices. I guess what I'm saying is you can't separate out fully the foot fetish from this cultural practice. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So interesting. When you were saying the thing about like small feet, it made me think of like the fetishization of just like small bodies and small people. And, you know, hair, you know, I'm sure people can connect this too, but just in my mind, it's kind of like, yes, like how we're obsessed with hairless women and how we want women to be super skinny and tiny and take up less space. And I feel like the foot of like literally shoving it into a container is like within that same zone of just wanting women in particular to be smaller and to be petite and to be feminine.
Yeah, it's true. And like that's a really good way of saying how you can't ever separate like sex and desire from other cultural practices that we have. I mean, there's just so many people that all the time. I mean, surely we all do it in one way or another. Like we all want to say like, oh no, I'm just wearing this t-shirt because I like this t-shirt design or I like this brand or whatever. But like on some level, if we like it, then it means that it's showing our body in a way that we want our body to be seen. And that like in some level, that is a part of the like desire matrix that we're all like navigating all the time, even unconsciously. I guess that's, I mean, you know, you might think that I'm like, well, not you, Danielle, but other people might think that I'm like, thinking I see sex everywhere and everything is about sex. And it's sort of, it's not that what I'm saying, but it's also not that. Like I do think that it is a. Right. I guess I do think that it is a force. It's a force that we're all like emanating and we're all navigating all the time, mostly unconsciously.
And especially when you're doing research for a book, right?
Yes,
it's kind of like, oh, now I'm interpreting all of these messages and the way in which that we receive, you know, ads and through our culture and our pop culture and our music. And like you kind of can see it everywhere. It's like something unlocks in your brain.
Exactly. And actually, so the difference between men and women is really interesting here, because for years before I was working on the book, so because I like men's feet, right? I'm the kind of person that if a bus goes past and it's for a beach holiday company and there's a guy and a girl on the in the ad on the bus and they're on the beach, my eyes like dart to it, because I'm thinking there's a good chance that hot guy, that hot model in that advert has got his dogs out, right? There's a good chance. So I looked for that. But what I noticed over like decades, you know, I'm quite old now, decades of doing that was that almost always the woman's feet were on show and the men's feet were not. And I think that was, and so I don't know, I haven't done the research on this, but my guess there was that like feet culturally in, you know, at least in the UK and I think in the US, generally there's this general idea that feet are disgusting, but men's feet are definitely disgusting, and they're more disgusting than women's feet. I think that's generally like a cultural idea, and so that's just kind of like a theory that I have, was that it's for years it was way more unlikely. And I mean, this is also true of like our culture in general. Like women's flesh is, you know, in advertising and stuff, has often been more bare than men's flesh, like as a rule. I think things have changed now. I don't know what the latest research is, but like but there is more like naked men, or like, you know, like men flesh that's used in advertising, and there's been more of a sexualization in popular culture of men's bodies and stuff, so that might have changed. But I just noticed that for years you'd never see like men's feet on adverts and stuff, whereas you would see women's feet a lot. And I'm not bitter about that, because, you know, women's feet are beautiful and they should be on the advert. But
agreed. But we want more men's dogs, is what we're saying. Let's talk about kind of the shame aspect of this. You've brought it up a few times, and I think it's time that it gets its day in court. So foot fetishes are kind of treated like a joke in the greater zeitgeist, even while we normalize other forms of taboo sexuality. Like BDSM, I feel like tying people up. People are talking more about, you know, choking, things like that. Whereas, you know, feet, I think, still have this kind of bad rap.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you think makes people see a foot fetish as especially perverse? And do you feel like through your research that this image has really changed over time, and it kind of goes through this cycle of like, people like it, people don't, people like it, people don't, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, like it's definitely before the 19th century, it was just there sometimes, and just like a lot of sex things, and not made that much of a fuss about either way. But then what happened in the 19th century was the start of, in Europe, of sexology and the study of sex. And I wrote a whole chapter about this in the book, called The Beard Strokers, because it tends to be these guys with beards who did what I think is really interesting and really important. They started to treat sex as a subject to study, and people's desires were worthy of thinking about and writing about and talking about, really. On the other hand, the way that they tended to write about that was in a very 19th century way of like, well, first of all, let's just observe these people and do so from a position of quote unquote scientific objectivity and curiosity. And therefore you're automatically putting that desire in the position of like a museum object or a weirdness, you know, like something, or like a bug under the microscope. And so you're automatically kind of saying that it's othering and weird. And then because at that time it was also happening at the same time was the creation of heterosexuality, which hadn't existed before. Therefore homosexuality hadn't existed before. You know, it was in the 19th century when we said, oh, there's actually a thing called heterosexual. And the reason why we created that was because we need to create the category of homosexual so that we can like say that these people are aberrant in one way or another. Before that, we didn't think about sexuality in that way. Just most people were having sex with the opposite sex or gender, you know? So those early psychologists like, you know, Kraft Ebing, they looked at it and they said, well, you know, this is not procreative. If you fancy feet, it's not going to make babies. And it doesn't look like it is like what we think of as like a normal sexuality. And so it's weird, just like pissing on someone's weird, or just like, like worshipping someone as a, you know, in a sort of master sub dynamic is weird. They just said it's all weird. And obviously being gay is weird. So like, it was just anything that wasn't
like put everything in the bucket of strange.
In the bucket, but then you've got nothing left because we're all weird in some way.
Right.
So yeah, the specific thing about feet was that once they were studied and codified, they were immediately classified as aberrant and weird. And I think that still sticks to us today.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to get away from hundreds and hundreds of years of history. Yeah. It takes a long time for culture to shift, even with our current lens, it still is, a tough thing.
Yeah, and I think that these things go around and about. They go in swings and roundabouts because, like one of the funny things people will say about feet, well, they're the dirtiest thing. They're touching the floor. They're closer to the floor, so it's the dirtiest part of your body. It's not true. Your hand is probably the dirtiest part of your body because your hand is touching everything. Like everywhere that you go all day long, your hand is touching things. You're putting food in your mouth. You're touching yourself. You're touching another person. You're touching the pole on the subway train. You're touching
wiping your butt.
You're wiping your butt, and your feet, for the most part, are like you clean them you clean them every day, and then they're there in socks and shoes. And they're not actually touching
cozy,
the floor.
they're warm.
So I just think it's funny how like we tell ourselves these lies about which parts of our bodies are disgusting, and I think that like if you think about it rationally, there must be something more going on as to why we think feet are disgusting, and it's this kind of like unconscious cultural unease that we have with feet.
Yes, and I do think there is inherently like a power dynamic perhaps with someone really liking feet because of all of the history that you named with Jesus and, washing the person's feet. And, it just, people say like, kiss my feet if they are saying like, you can go fuck yourself, kind of like, oh, like I am above you or, things like that. Yeah. Whereas it can't be separated from the way in which we see these messages and the way that we internalize them and think, oh, well, if I do have some sort of kink or fetish for being a sub, then it can automatically feel like it relates in your mind.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it could just be that you really like feet. Exactly. And maybe you're a dom that really likes feet.
Yeah,
like it really just depends on who you are and the kind of thing that you're into.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into building our sex toy team, before we let you go, I'm curious if someone knows that they are into feet or they're interested in trying feet, so to speak, can you give any words of advice on kind of bringing that up to a partner or to a new date, given how kind of foot fetishes land in culture and what that feels like?
I think it's a really good question, and I think that this is a lot easier to say than to do, and I respect anyone who's thinking about this and trying it. And it's not just with feet, it's the same with anything. But I think that you want to live in a world and you want to live in a partnership, don't you, where you can just say like, hey, what about this? And have the person not flip out. And if they flip out, then that tells you something about them that you might want to think about, honestly. And like, I'm not saying like break up with someone immediately, but like, I think we want to live in a world where we want our partners to like be interested in our sexuality, and it should be a safe space to just talk about it and open it. And so I think that's the number one thing, is to know that like if you're curious about it, then it's worth exploring. And therefore, if you do have a partner and it's a monogamous partner and you're not allowed to have sex with anyone else, then it's worth raising with that particular partner and just saying like, look, this is a thing. And then doing things like finding a video that like matches, finding some porn that like is a thing, that like a way that feet are being involved in a way that like speaks to you, as it were. And then just like doing an entry thing like we were talking about earlier, like a foot massage, like just saying, if your partner's like, oh god, I don't know, I'm not sure if I like that, then just saying, well, how about you give me a foot rub, or I give you a foot rub, and then we see where we go
baby
from
steps
there.
No pun intended.
Oh my gosh, there you go.
That's really good. Yeah, we always say on the show, like, if you're sharing something in a kind way with a partner and they shame you for it, then really maybe you're not with the right person, because you deserve to be able to share. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your partner needs to participate in every single fetish or like kink that you have or thing that you're interested in.
I think of it like this, right? Like food, right? Like, we all know that we like different kinds of food, and each person has some things that they really love that another person really doesn't like and cannot understand at all. But like, it would be weird, wouldn't it, if I felt I just couldn't tell my boyfriend that I don't like pizza. Like, I'm just scared of how he's going to react if I say I don't like pizza, because he's going to think that
would be fucked up if you didn't like pizza.
Well, exactly. But... I mean, God, like,
what the hell?
Next. But like, But like, because he's going to jump to conclusions and think that I want to rub pizza all over his face, or I want him to shove pizza in my ass, like, and therefore I just can't mention it. Like, that would be weird. And so like, but actually the way that we live is that we say like, oh, I like pizza and my boyfriend doesn't like pizza. Oh, okay, we now know that about each other. Fine, no shame. And so like, why can't we live in a world where we can do that with sex? Just be like, oh, I like this, what do you like? And that's how it is.
I love it. That's such a great metaphor. Yeah. I think it's so great. And in that vein, let's talk about foot toys.
Yes.
And let's talk about sex toys that people who are into feet can enjoy. So I have a few here, but I'm curious from your end, like what kind of toys do people like this segment also?
Yes, well,
from your feet.
From my end, I don't know about toys. For me, like the toy is the foot itself. But if we're going to go into like product territory, then it's specific kinds of socks that I might buy to, especially like it's so basic, but like white sports socks, like to buy those for the other person to wear, to make them smelly, or to wear while we're playing together. And like, especially in like gay world, there's a lot of socks which are made now and marketed now, like knowing that like gay men are gonna like use them in sex, like socks with the word sniff on the sole, for example, so that is like a toy or product that's made. Similarly, trainers are really hot, and also like sandals, especially like for me, like things like Birkenstocks and sandals like that. And so those are things that I think about when I think about like objects and toys, but they're not like, I guess I like them as well because they're not made explicitly for, apart from some of those socks that I mentioned, but really socks and shoes, they're not really made explicitly for
just everyday products.
Yeah, they're everyday things which can become sexy, just like Nutella.
Totally. Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a couple here.
I want to hear about them.
Foot strokers are a thing. I looked this up, and this personally isn't of interest to me, but someone out there might be interested in this.
Yep.
There are hyper-realistic silicone feet, and there are feet fleshlights if you're interested in fucking a fake foot. One of them is called a vajankle, which is fascinating.
Yes. Yeah.
We will put all these in the show notes. Something that I really liked out of this list, there are like sensation play toys. So like ticklers and feathers. There are spiked massage balls. There are things that, you can get for more intensity. There are kind of like acupressure tools and mats. There are stim toys. And then, of course, Uberlube, we're biased, is one of our sponsors for this show. And I personally love Uberlube for anything sexy and a good massage oil. Uberlube is a really great silicone lube. You can also use an oil lube. Those are the things I have.
It's right. We forgot to mention tickling people earlier on in our long menu.
How could we?
Yeah. So tickling things like the products that you mentioned can be really good if that's the thing that you like. I mean, people love the torture of it. They love like being tied up or held down, and then they're just being tickled and they're being stimulated with one of these things.
As we said, there's a whole menu of different ways that you can involve the feet. You can use one of these toys, massage, licking, sucking, fucking, kissing, worshipping, smelling. There are all these ways that folks can enjoy.
And also just to say, like, it doesn't have to be its own thing. Like, for me, one of my favorite things is like, if I'm like having sex in the bum with another guy and the feet, like, let's say I'm on my back and he's like fucking me, so my feet are in the air and they're also like on his shoulders, they could be on his chest. Feet on the chest is really amazing while the other thing is happening, do you know what I mean? Or then he can put his my feet in his mouth, and so basically including feet in the other things that you might be doing can be really hot too.
Yes. Totes. It doesn't have to be its own course. It can be part of the meal.
I mean, actually, I think a lot of people discover feet that way, that like they're doing the other thing that they're normally doing as sexy, and then they're just like, oh my God, and also I want to put that toe in my mouth. And they do that and they're like, oh wow, okay, this is just enhancing the experience even more. So, yeah.
Like literally suck on my toes.
Yeah.
Once I figure out how good this feels, like just do it. That is so great. Adam, thank you so much for being here. You are so funny and so well read and well written with your book.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? And now that the book's out in the US, where can they get it?
Well, they can find me. My website is just adamzmith.com. It's like Smith, but with a Z. And same on Instagram. And also, you can get Soulmates. Now that it's published in the US, you can get it from any bookshop. If they don't have it in stock, they can order it in. And it'll be able to come really quickly, and also from all the usual bookshop places. So it's published by Saraband, and it's now out in the US.
Amazing. We will put all of that in the show notes, bookshop.org link in the show notes for you to buy this book. And we can't wait to have you back in the future to talk about the history of poppers.
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Welcome to The Afterglow, where we wind things down, reflect on big takeaways, and leave you with one juicy thing to try, think about, or explore before next week. I loved this shame and judgment-free conversation all about feet with Adam. He is so fun. I had such a great time talking to him. And it's just so important to talk to people about fetishes, not just academically, but in their own experiences and personal interests as well. And I'm really grateful to have gotten to cover the history, some research, and first-person experience with Adam in this episode. Despite how they might be depicted, foot fetishes are not weird or uncommon or the domain of just straight men. Having your feet touched and touching a partner's feet might have so much more potential for pleasure than you might have considered. And I hope this episode gets you inspired to try it a little. And whether or not you're interested, remember that there's nothing shameful about being into feet. If you are, don't shame yourself about it. If you're not, try to take a beat to remember this episode before judging something that isn't hurting anyone and is making plenty of people get pleasure that they deserve. And now, this is one of my favorite pleasure practices of the week that we've ever had. Go get a pedicure. Yes, men, you too. Men absolutely do get pedicures and love it. And no, you don't have to get your nails painted, but you should also give that a try too. But I personally, as I mentioned in this episode, love pedicures. I just got one recently. And I know that they can be expensive and they might have some accessibility hurdles, but it might just be too intimate for you. So if it's absolutely a no-go, maybe get a nice foot massage from your partner or give yourself a foot rub. Get an oil to help, coconut oil will do, but absolutely feel free to get fancy and enjoy the relaxation and sensation. Thank you so much for listening. Love y'all. Talk to you next week.